Hello, good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain, so.
I'm Kayode Okikilu.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Akinde.
Well, yesterday we saw journalists, and just a section of journalists. I mean, the wider population of journalists in Nigeria also, of course, in support of that protest by the FCT Union of Journalists in Abuja, and the protests which they took to the streets of the nation's capital was over is over the missing Vanguard reporter, Mr. Tode Salem. It's been how many days? He was last seen on October 13th. He reportedly slept in his sister's house on October the 12th. And of course went to work the next day and was last seen by his colleagues between 4 and 5 p.m. of that day. And reports have it that afterwards he couldn't be reached. So October the 13th, and there you see his picture. Up till this moment today is October the 26th. So that's 13 days since he's been last heard of. And it raises a lot of issues. I mean, we've had reports of journalists being missing. I mean, Daddy Yatta is one infamous example now. Over a year, 14 months, he's been missing. And now we have Mr. Tode Salem, who a lot of people describe many, glowing terms, and they wonder why. I mean, what is responsible for this? So journalists came on the streets and thought, enough is enough. We cannot keep having this. I mean, not in the nation's capital, Abuja, where you'd expect that security should be top-notch. I mean, what is...
Oh, anywhere else in the country, as a matter of fact.
But, I mean, you understand that. I mean, it's close to the seat of power, and you expect that. I mean, security should be top-notch there. I mean, we wouldn't even get to talk about the CCTVs that are meant to be there. I mean, they could have helped in actually tracking movement. So it's really sad when you understand that. I mean, it was just a few days to his birthday. He has a 5-year-old child who is wondering, where is my father? Enough is enough, really. The police has been responding to this, definitely saying they have leads on this, they have his call log and the rest. But 13 days, it's really sad.
The issue of Todwe is an example. We hear every day how that people get missing. Yes, the police is speaking. Yes, the police is doing something. But the question you want to ask is, how far so far? I mean, listening to the family, hopefully you'll be able to listen to the family. There's an African proverb that our child is late is better than our child is missing. The trauma of uncertainty is better said. But as I said, this is just an example. We are hearing of Tode Salem because he's a journalist. How many other people have gotten missing in the country and no one is hearing about, no one may ever hear about? How many people have been missing for so long? Is the police overwhelmed? Do we have enough on our hands? Do we have too much to grapple with? The issues are diverse. I don't envy the police. They're doing a lot of work under intense pressure, but then they have their job cut out for them. Excuse me, as Chamberlain would always say. And I'm at a loss for the choice of words this morning for what that 5-year-old would be going through. What's the baby being told? How is everyone grappling with the matter? And then even his colleagues at the office and stuff like that. There has been appeals. The National Assembly has reacted, expressing sadness. The police is doing everything that they can. This happened in the seat of power. And there are a number of people who have said over time before now that, look, a lot of kidnapping had been going on around the FCT. And now, this one example in the FCT. How many more are there that we're not aware of? We've heard and seen protests as a result of what's happened to Todwe. There are many others that we will not hear about. Not because they're not important, but I don't really know what to say. I don't know for how long this is going to go on. The police is making all the efforts, but then at the end of the day, no one cooks efforts in a pot of soup.
You know, I just think that there are several, this matter brings up several issues like several other cases. You know, the police, for instance, if you look at certain things, it just appears as though in this country we like to play the ostrich, you know, for the most part, those who are supposed to do certain things, that I mean, because which state would you look to that don't have one form of security structure or the other? You know, rather than us addressing what the main challenge is with the police and ensure that they work, they try to set up several other things, play around the main issue, and after some years, you see, they hope that it dies down. Because, I mean, we know that the police has got capacity to do certain things. If those institutional bottlenecks and impediments are removed, and allow them address the basic needs, the purpose for which they were set up. Look, guys, I don't need to go too far. If you look at right from history when they were set up, look, it's just a lot. Because if you look at, even till date, if you look at our fight against insurgency and all of those things, do you see any policing component? And if you do, what kind of impact do they have on that? So,
if I would contribute a little further to what you said, the Nigerian police is so well structured. For instance, the EFCC is a product of the police. The ICPC is a product of the police.
The SFU is a product of the police.
The SFU is a product of so many institutions like that are from the police. Now, rather than
and you see those ones making impact in certain areas,
making impact simply because they have been pulled out. Why do that? It would only suggest that maybe we don't really want the police to work.
Because sometimes when we talk about the police needing to do certain things, look, some of them will tell you guys, look, what about those who are tying our hands? The politicians, let's call a spade, and see how they say no. Do you know how many of their cronies they have in those places? It's not just the police. What about judiciary? So not just judiciary, what about, look, we could go on. So what we're hoping, we expect, because they've spoken about, told you that, yes, they're doing certain things and hoping that it works, because we don't want to talk about the NIN, the SIM, why people have talked about, if we got NIN linked to the SIM, how come the kidnappers are still demanding ransom based from those calls, which is what we intended to address in the first instance? Why do foreigners, I'm not talking about those who are born here, foreigners, true, who have our name, why is that happening? So, look, but at the end of the day, I like to be optimistic that there's always light at the end of the tunnel, because without hope, yes, don't tell me it's a strategy, I know, but without hope, what can life be? Or what is life without that? So,
we do hope that he's rescued, he's
I hate
found.
to say that, yes. We hope that it is a serious matter when certain persons are missed and you have no idea what's been going on, you know, the trauma that you go through. So we'll just encourage everyone to steady the ship and keep at it, and the police do what they can to ensure that this happens. Well, we'll just take a moment and we'll be back to take you through some of what the dailies are reflecting today. All right, welcome back. Let's run you through some of the dailies we've got today on cue. That's the first one, Vanguard newspaper, eNaira. That's what it is about. A lot of dailies today. So that's the first one. eNaira can raise our GDP by $29 billion in 10 years. Right. So can being the operative word. And you see some say will. And you see some. So, but then GDP raise 29 billion 10 years. Those words are key feature in that entire sentence. So no matter which one comes first, so at least those ones in
10 years
in
again.
any order.
10 years again.
Okay, what is it with these 10 years? For 10 years, yes, 10
Don't
years
forget that
again.
we talked about 10 years to take 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in partnership with the states. that Nigeria can.
That's the part that is not played up properly. And how do the states, do they have the... It always looks as if we're highlighting problems. I don't know if I want to talk about some of these things, but those are the challenges. That's our reality.
Does that conversation come up at the NEC, the NEC meetings with the vice president
And the government.
and the National Economic Council? Does that issue arise? Is it discussed in the meetings that we have a 10-year plan to take 100 million Nigerians out of poverty?
Well, it may be. You never can tell. We expect that it will be.
Expected. But don't forget that something that we say often here, we report what is said or done.
Well, look at the other comments associated with that lead story. 33 banks fully integrated and live on the platform, ascribed to the CBN. Says 120 merchants successfully registered. What are these merchants? Okay. Notes over 2,000 customers onboarded. Okay. Tax base will increase as more businesses move to formal sector. Very enthusiast. Okay, well, I can't say don't be scared now.
Because tax.
You hear
A lot of
tax.
people don't want to hear tax.
We hear some words, tax, whether the adjective or the subsequent verbs or to describe, and then you see, okay, well, it says tax base will increase. Not that they will increase taxation, but the base. So maybe
No, I'm talking about people that are not already in that tax net, so they think, oh, wait a minute. But hey, if you're not in the tax net and you are liable to pay tax, isn't that's unlawful?
We'll talk about that and see how that can play out. But again, it's all about the economy as well. Look at the other story just beneath that lead one. Economy, let's act with fierce urgency. NESG tells FG others. So you see that fierce
I think that
urgency.
That particular one is very, very crucial. It only suggests some. That's the Economic Summit Group,
Yeah.
who monitor the economy, so to speak. So it would seem then that there are some things that we aren't really doing the way we ought to be doing them at the pace that we ought to be doing them. Don't forget that we have a challenge of collaboration of MDAs. Is there a challenge of collaboration of the federal and state governments as well? Yes, yes.
Well. Don't forget to check the back page as well. NFF to rejig Super Falcons technical team. And then, you see, AJ's problem is with himself, not his coaches. White. So AJ, would you get rid of yourself? I mean, the problem bit. And then do the needful. Wait.
Well, I mean, if the needful is what?
Himself.
Making money off the work he's doing. I think he's doing well with that one.
What if you're surprised? Because, I mean, you've seen a pattern. Lose first, then win second one. Lose first, then win second. Don't go into somebody who lose first and he just come back and lose the second one.
Well, I mean, you might not have the belt, but he's got the
But Honda was still number one, though, on that WC ranking after losing the
So,
bout.
just wait and see, I guess. Well, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper for you. And as you'll expect, eNaira makes the front page. Doesn't just make the front page, it's the big lead. eNaira goes live as CBN floats new scheme to boost economy. 33 banks join platform. CBN mints 500 million. Is it eNaira now? Transactions on eNaira free for 90 days, and after which you'll get some charges. But we'll walk you through those charges and help you understand what to expect from this one. A couple of other riders, particularly this one. Buhari insists on close monitoring. Says digital currency will boost GDP by 29 billion naira.
Will.
There you go with the will. So all of that you find on the front page. It continues on page 2. It's a picture of the president launching the eNaira yesterday. Under that, you see Northwest demands lion's share of revenue allocation to state LGAs. You wonder what context this is in. But let me take a look at the riders for you. RMAFC explains why revenue formula has not been reviewed since 1992. FRC caution states on rising debt profile, reckless loans, threatens financial institutions against violating due process in granting loans. Stop using consultants for tax collection, experts tell FG. And NYCN rally support for FIRS to tackle tax defaulters. So it doesn't quite give context to that lead that says Northwest demands lion's share of revenue allocation to states LGA. So perhaps you find the details in the inside pages. Let me take this one more for you. Don't force workers to vaccinate. NLC advises FG. So that's the position of the NLC on this one. You wonder what steps will be taken, seeing that deadlines have been put already. That's the Guardian newspaper.
Daily Trust, also on eNaira. Buhari launches eNaira, says GDP to rise by 11.9 trillion naira. Well, I guess it was just a conversion of the dollar value. Okay. That's what you have right there on the front page.
So this is to, not will.
Says
to
to
rise.
rise.
No, will rise.
Well, no, it's a headline, so maybe we'll have the quote in the story. And you'll find that story on page 5. Policy will aid government's welfare policy. Okay. 33 banks running e-currency as CBN mints 500 million naira. Is that minting 500 million eNaira or saying 500 million naira?
It means eNaira. How you going to do that?
I'm just wondering. I mean,
some people just want to lose the mindset of mint with currency.
So, how are we even going to write it now?
With the CBN governor still signing it.
When you look at the way 500 million naira is, or the trillion naira is written. When you want to write it in E, are you going to put EM?
I mean, we'll wait for the proper...
Oh, no, there's the logo, right?
No, I'm saying in writing it.
In writing it?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we'll wait. But that's the lead of the Daily Trust.
Because I looked at that all through yesterday. I couldn't wrap my head around it.
But I mean, it was quite creative, embedding the E with the N. The coming days will be interesting.
Don't be creative.
Well, it looks, well, there's a struggle with the euro there, but hey,
well,
I didn't say
it's
that.
E and Naira.
Okay, I can see it.
Take the euro out of your mind, bro.
No, it's not a struggle with the euro. Really.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
It's E and Naira.
It's the naira.
Oh, yeah. It's the naira. The eNaira. Okay. Right under that picture, Northern Coalition asks courts to exit Saudis from Nigeria. What does that mean? Check the details on the inside pages of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Okay, well, you also have a quick one now. News Direct, also on the eNaira. FG projects $29 billion GDP growth as CBN releases guidelines for eNaira. Aggressive awareness required to achieve projection, experts. They've talked about this time and again. So, and then something about security. NAS pledges more funding to military institutions. That's some bits about security. So that's a new Telegraph this morning.
But for the Daily Independent, eNaira is also a big one. eNaira will grow GDP by $29 billion in 10 years. Buhari. So that's something you find across other dailies. But this one, Anambra Guber election, FG orders security agencies to deal with troublemakers. So that's the position. The election is what? Just next week.
Whoa.
Yes.
Just next week?
Just next week.
Time flies.
It flies first class, right? So
Yeah.
that's the position. On top of the nameplate, you see bandits attack Niger mosque, kill 18 worshippers, abduct 18. This is not normal. Let's leave it there for the Daily Independent.
I don't know if we have the Nigerian Tribune with us this morning. Niger Delta demands 50% increase in derivation fund. That's what you have right there on the front page. Northwest demands lion's share of revenue allocation for states and local governments. Stories on page 2. Several others that will take your fancy this morning. Right on above the nameplate, Nigeria's GDP may increase by $29 billion with eNaira. Buhari. 33 banks integrated live on platform, says Emefiele. So many other stories right there on the front page. So many to choose from, if you ask me. And of course, the pick is yours.
Okay, new Telegraph next then. They focus on the Anambra Guba. INEC's ad hoc staff resign en masse over IPOB's threat.
Whoa.
NSA reads Riot Act, says rogue element will face justice. Election will hold as scheduled, says Commission. Southeast CSOs beg IPOB avert emergency rule in Anambra, shelve 1 week stay at home. That's what you see right there. So it's a huge security concern. And if this resignation is happening, as it's reported, questions about deployment. But yes, they've deployed a lot of security agencies there. So perhaps they'll need to do a lot more. There's a word they normally use now. Show of force. No, show of presence this time. You know, when you say show of force, it could be intimidating to the civilian public. So if you're showing your presence massively and then they see that you're there all the time in the build-up to this and thereafter, I think, I'm not sure this headline would have been.
Yeah, and I think, I wonder what this will do to the elections, because to train this staff for elections is not, I mean, the election is just next week.
Yeah.
So you wonder how much time is left. You wonder the veracity of this as well. I expect that INEC will be responding to this. But I know that core members have had terrible experiences in the past with elections, not in Anambra, by the way. In other parts of the country, some of them beaten, some of them abducted. You know, so it's something that we need to actually get a hold of once and for all.
And then you see at the bottom strip, security. FG to construct shooting ranges at airports. Yeah, shooting ranges at airports. FAN designs roadmap for safety. International operators jostle for Nigeria's airport concession minister. So maybe you should go to the story and reconcile our shooting ranges and airport concession, while we still need to ensure we sort out those challenges, operational challenges with airline, timeliness, organization at our airports. It would do a lot of service, a great deal to investors and investments, because time is money and time is spent. If you waste that time, you waste money invariably. Anyways, that is it with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We're back in a moment, and we're going to be talking about the eNaira. Don't go away.
Unlike any other historic feat in his administration, the digital currency eNaira being unveiled by the president seems particularly promising for the economy.
That is it. That is it.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, leadership of the National Assembly, as well as members of Cabinet, are also physically in attendance for the new payment system, which has taken 4 years to crystallize. Cryptocurrency, like the Bitcoin, has dominated headlines, but the central bank digital currency, which are basically digital versions of the existing national currency, is different.
We have become the first country in Africa and one of the first in the world to introduce a digital currency to our citizens. The use of central bank digital currencies can help move away more people and businesses from the informal into the formal sector, thereby creating the tax base of the country. Indeed, some estimates indicate that the adoption of central bank digital currencies and its underlying technology, called blockchain, can increase Nigeria's GDP by 29 billion United States dollars over the next 10 years.
The CBDCs, which is fast becoming commonplace globally, is a chance for Nigeria to speed up economic gains and the value of the naira.
Our eNaira is a journey that starts today. It is not a one-off event. It is a journey of possibilities. We will continue to refine, fine-tune, and upgrade it. 33 banks are fully integrated and live on the platform. 500 million naira has been successfully minted by the CBN. 200 million naira has been issued to financial institutions. Over 2,000 customers have been onboarded on the platform, and over 120 merchants have successfully registered on the e-platform.
Customers who download the eNaira Speed Wallet app will be able to create wallet, fund their eNaira wallets from their bank account, transfer eNaira from their wallet to another wallet, among other gains. Announcing a new financial instrument titled the 100-400 Policy on Production and Productivity, the CBN governor assures that the eNaira will share the same value as the regular naira. As a matter of fact, it will be exchanged as 1 naira to 1 eNaira. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, we're focusing on that launch of the eNaira, as you may have seen yesterday, and some parts of the report this morning highlights some of the matters raised at that launch. Yes, as you've also may have seen, we've got Paul Alaiji, an economist, joining us this morning to weigh in on possibilities, expectations, challenges, and more. Good morning, Mr. Alaiji. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning, and thank you so very much for having me.
All right, so let's start. I mean, of course, you'll always have mixed reactions about this. A lot of people will be buzzing. Some others will be cautiously optimistic. Others will just look at the figures, what to do, wait and see. So what was your approach towards this launch?
Well, for me, eNaira has a lot of good values it will be adding to the payment system. First, it will be relatively easier and cheaper to send money from one account to the other. For instance, if you use Bank A and you want to make withdrawal in your bank, sometimes it may attract some charges if you are not with your checkbook and so on and so forth. That may not be applicable if you want to transfer money from one account to the other. In another Bank B, some charges may be applicable with eNaira. According to what is made available by Central Bank, the cost of withdrawal is near zero. So that is also another great benefit that eNaira is offering with the launch, as been mentioned by the Central Bank Authority. Quite a number of other things that eNaira will be doing. More importantly, the cost of printing money in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll be saving almost 1/3 of what we spend to print money, because the 5 naira you have in your pocket 15 years ago, the value at that time is much stronger. When you look at the cost, because of continuous devaluation of currency, you are actually paying more, and there are arguments that we might even be paying more than what we are holding in our hands in terms of 5 naira, because in the last 15 years or 20 years, 5 naira has lost so much value compared to what we hold in our hands today. So, but when it goes to eNaira, we are not necessarily going to print money, which means it's going to help authority in terms of minimizing cost. Another thing is it could also help authority to know how much money is in circulation, talking about money supply, how to control inflation, etc., etc. So, apart from those, it's also going to give quite a number of solutions to denomination, talking about currency denomination. Somebody wants to buy a commodity worth 15 naira 90 kobo, and he has 20 naira. Where will he get change from? So you sometimes will be forced, oh, just don't worry, we don't have the change. So most commodity just increase from 15 naira to 20 naira. Meanwhile, they could have been 18 naira. But what do you do with 2 naira? With eNaira, you can have 18 naira spent because you are not holding physical money. It's convenient, it's good, So it has quite a number of benefits, if you ask me, in the short run. So I have seen some of those things. It will solve some of the problems that we have around that area. I recall that many years ago, I think in the early 2000 or 2004, 5, I think properly speaking, in 2006, the former central bank governor has also tried to reduce some of these concerns around having how to deviate money from 5 naira to lower denomination. And the then central bank governor had printed or created coins and all of those things. The real question that has not been solved is, how are we going to improve the value of naira? That is what eNaira has not provided answers to.
Because I was also wondering, when you spoke about those denominations, how people can transact those businesses, and that was the next question. So is this going to impact on it? But they equally spoke about, okay, well, maybe we should address that first. In case they're still thinking about plotting and trying to see how that can impact, other than ensuring that if we don't produce and export those things, can we impact on the value of the naira based on just this introduction of the eNaira?
Well, for me, eNaira will at best save us some costs, even though it appears it's going to be a major competition with some commercial banks that have built payment system infrastructure. It appears it's going to be a major competition with them, because virtually all the banks have what eNaira is offering us today. In fact, some banks have USSD. So the unique solution is providing, it may be too early, I'm still studying, and our organization is also studying to see the unique solution eNaira is bringing, apart from our ability to deviate to lower denomination, because we are carrying digital currency, which of course is great, by the way. But when it comes to issue of value, now, before the conversation around eNaira started, central bank has taken a position regarding those that are trading cryptocurrency. And the position had been that, oh, we cannot monitor cryptocurrency. And after some time, we started hearing argument about the central bank digital currency, which, of course, we have eNaira today. So the question is, people in that demography, the Gen Z, Generation Y, Generation X, those that are participating in crypto, why are they participating in it? Is it just a China currency, an American currency? Some of these persons that are participating in those, apart from the security and protection, which eNaira is providing, and those currencies, digital currency, I don't want to mention individual names, might not be providing for those people who are operating in, who are buying and selling the currency today. The real question is value. So I think that we also, beyond providing security, we also need to provide answers to the question of value. Because if I had eNaira, let's assume it was available 10 years ago, and for putting my fund in that e-wallet, 10 years, what was Naira exchanging for in 2011, and what is it today? So I'm still exposed to inflation within Nigeria. I'm still exposed to devaluation. I'm still exposed to importation, massive importation, and so on and so forth. And that was the opinion before now, that central bank would have benchmarked this against maybe the dollar. And it's not wrong if we have two currencies. One is Naira, one is eNaira. One is benchmarked against Naira, the other one is benchmarked against the dollar. And that's what I was expecting. I would have used several conditions to ensure that people don't mismanage it. That's what I was expecting. But because the value is still the same, the question is, what is different exactly? And in terms of value, when you look at our spending bills, I really doubt if these will help change. But to be fair on central bank cannot print foreign currency. We have about $40 billion in our foreign reserve. That is also very, very small. A population with a country with our population, we need between $400 to $500 billion for us to be at comfortable level. Even though $40 billion is still relatively manageable compared to where we were when we were looking at $30 billion in our foreign reserve. But we still have quite a lot to do. eNaira is good. The introduction, I'm happy when the central bank governor said this is just the beginning of a journey. But to leave it with Naira and what Naira is today, and based on our insight that we have, what Naira has been in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years, in the last 20 years, and even 1999 till date, to say we'll continue to keep this in eNaira the way it is today, I doubt if it will really achieve more gains. And the population, the population, the demography, Central Bank at the time are targeted, talking about the Gen Zs, talking about the Generation Y, and so on and so forth. I doubt if the value they are looking for it's in what is being launched today. And that is, for me, a key thing. Recall that cryptocurrency lost a lot of value at a time, and it was perhaps all-time low. But today, cryptocurrency is back perhaps as all-time high, talking about one or two of those currencies. So I still wonder what they are doing correctly, and that we also need to do correctly, even though the two currencies are not the same thing at all. But to say that we can live with this value, and that is why quite a number of persons have criticized eNaira, that is really not adding any value when you look at it, because I cannot save the value of my currency. I cannot, the value of money I have is exposed to what every other person is doing. Apart from those, you also look at some of the digital currency, cryptocurrencies that we have around. People even buy and sell them. You know, the currency itself, they trade the currency. That is not applicable, as though you are buying stock and selling stock. That is not applicable to eNaira the way it's being launched today. So these are some concerns that authorities may need to go back in their boardrooms and perhaps see what can best fit the population. And the population is so important because 90 million Nigerians are below 15 years. If you had 15 years' time, we have said the eNaira, we had almost $20-something billion to Nigeria in the next 10 years. Those that are below 15 years add 10 years to their age and ask, will they be able to still use, knowing fully well some of these challenges that we have spoken about today?
Oh dear, Mr. Alaiji, you have packed quite a lot, really. I mean, some of those challenges that have been raised into your submission. So, I mean, from what we know so far, we still expect that the Central Bank of Nigeria will, on the program today, shed some more light on this one so Nigerians can understand better what this is about, because quite a lot of questions you have raised, and you've also commended this process as well. So, but what we know so far is 1 naira is equal to 1 eNaira as it stands. We understand that it is not the same as cryptocurrency, even though it is said to be based on the blockchain technology. And, you know, in terms of the Gen Z, which is quite important, I mean, you referenced that in the next 10 years, which the government projected, they will be largely in charge, if they are not now anyway, but largely in charge of the economy, which is why we're meant to ensure that they are early uptakers right now. But when you look at some of the reasons the CBN gave for introducing the eNaira, after we saw the ban of cryptocurrency trading, one of them is inclusion, to ensure that you have people that don't have, you know, communities who do not have enough banking opportunities are included or, you know, put on board such that they can have, if they don't have at least the raw cash, there are no ATMs and banks around, they have the eNaira on their mobile phone. So to that extent, if the government is saying, well, we're ensuring inclusion, we're ensuring that, you know, minting, we don't spend a lot on minting. I mean, without looking at that trading angle, do you think that balances out and sort of maybe in the future, this would eventually, I mean, make do for some of those lapses?
Well, I think that in the near future, even from now, because of what has been reported by the central bank, quite a number of communities that don't have internet access but could use mobile phone, even though they cannot access the internet, they will still be able to use the eNaira because it is USSD enabled. That is good news because we're going to have more inclusion. Report that is available, the recent report that is available shows that less than 45 million Nigerians have unique account ID, account registration ID, talking about BVN. Recall that our population, according to the National Population Commission, depending on the time we want to look at, is between 206 million people to 208 million people. So the number of those that are not banked is very high. But that is really not the real challenge, because you see, central bank is not isolated in an economy. They need for convergence of policy. So central bank wants to accelerate transaction, which of course in itself will accelerate GDP growth, but how we grow translates to development, and that has always been the concern I point out from time to time. It is not sufficient for us to have growth. We've had 7% growth with increased unemployment. So you doubt the growth, even though the growth is there, but the impact of the growth is not significant on the economy. As we speak, National Bureau of Statistics released quite a number of interesting reports on Q4 2020. Recall that Q2 2020, Nigeria's labor force, the labor force in Nigeria was above 80 million people. Now, for no further explanation, the labor force reduced, and I'm not yet talking about unemployment. The labor force reduced to about 69 million people. That in itself is a concern. What happens to everybody that are really unable to work? Is it that they became handicapped and they are not able to work? Is it that they have left Nigeria for greener pasture, aka doctors, pharmacists, professionals, and found greener pasture elsewhere? And this is a report produced by government agency, the National Bureau of Statistics. Now, so some of these persons who were part of our labor force are no longer there. But guess what happened with unemployment, which of course is based on the labor force? It increased from about 27% to 33.3%. The same report just in 6 months, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. And you know the important thing, when you look at population against the labor force, you are looking at those that should help the economy, and the remaining part that depends on them. So approximately 70 million people out of 208 million people. So even if you're charitable, you talk about 136 or 138 million people, depending on about 70 million people. That's on one hand. Of the 70 million people, you have 33.3% who are unemployed, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. These are not my figures. Then you have 22.8% who are underemployed, and we have now launched a currency that should help them. What other ministries and agencies of government should be doing to support and make Naira stronger, whether it is eNaira or currency of fiat, the one we use today, before the digital one came, the fiat currency, is how do we empower Naira? The only way you can empower Naira is through production. This is because in 2011, Nigerian women spent about in 2016, I beg your pardon, Nigerian women spent about $211 million to import human hair. Almost the same amount was spent to import tractors. So you ask the question, why are our farm not thriving? Perhaps some of the monies that should have helped our farm to thrive are already on women hair, are already on the heads of women. And if you have women close to you, check their heads. And those that are around me today, I check their head and I wonder where the jobs are. So our priority is really not it. Our priority as a people. And this is not just about central bank. Like I said, central bank cannot print the dollar. As Nigerian people, as Nigerian authorities, we must formulate policy and have the will to implement those policies for prosperity of our nation, and more importantly, for job creation, and finally, for economic transformation. But I'm afraid I am not seeing some of these things this moment today, and I truly hope that in the coming period, for enhanced eNaira, because when you hear you have 100 naira can buy XYZ commodity. But in about 2 or 3 years, you hear that you now need more. So what is the advantage? How safe is your eNaira even in your bank account or even online? How safe is the money when the value continues to emaciate? So for me, I think we also need to look at the fiscal arm. We need to look at the trade arm so that they can complement what monetary authority wants to achieve this moment today.
Well, I'm almost certain that the women are coming for you, Mr. Alaiji, for all of the revelations that you have made so far on this program. You know, but you know, you've spoken around inclusion, but I want you to speak to it. At a time when the SDG goal, all SDG goals tagline is "Leave no one behind," and we're having a challenge of inclusion already. Compare the literacy or e-literacy figures, digital literacy, the level of literacy altogether. As we speak, there are those in sub-rural areas or even rural areas altogether where they have the privilege of ATMs. that the people cannot even use the ATMs. Some other people have to use these ATMs for them. Now you are telling them to go use a mobile phone, USSD enabled and all of that. I'm wondering what your expectations would be for the CBN to achieve a measure of digital literacy that can help them to use this facility. I'm saying that in the light of the micro, small, and medium enterprises, which are largely subsistence as opposed to sustainable. What would you propose be done?
Well, thank you so very much. In 2014, organization carried out extensive research as private organization in Benue State. And out of the 3 senatorial districts, we chose one of the senatorial districts. And of the 9 local governments in that senatorial district, only 3 of the 9 local governments has a bank presence. In fact, 6 local governments, there is no even agency banking. And of the 5 of the local government, there is no one-story building in Benue State, and that was in 2014. So even though Central Bank has encouraged agency banking, where people can deposit cash and they can transfer money, they can receive money, and all of those to increase penetration and also inclusion, bringing those in informal sector to see how they can bring them to formal sector. But we still have a lot of challenges. And if you ask what kind of challenges we have, I tell you that it was even a debate on the floor of the parliament where members of National Assembly have said we cannot even transfer election because of this reality of internet challenges, even though now I think opinion of majority won to say we just have to do that. For me, I believe we can wrap up with our infrastructure. Government may need to work with private sector to improve infrastructure. We have huge gap when it comes to literacy. Over 10 million people, children are out of school now. In the next 10 years, they will be part of this program. Central Bank continue to work on it. How will they be able to use? That's on one hand. We also have another group of young people who have also known quote and unquote too much and participated on internet fraud and so on and so forth. So we need to create education center. We need to create if you like, e-learning for people in their own way, not the way we want it to be, in their own way, in their community. So Central Bank will also need to do a lot of training, and the training should not be formal training, by the way, going to remote corners, work with agency bank, those that are running agency banking today, all those smaller shops, kiosks, work with them so that they can also, those that are already accessing the money, will continue to access financial services without necessarily having presence. I also recall that we have very low number of people when it comes to having the BVN. Like I mentioned, less than 45 million Nigerians has BVN according to the available report, even though there are a lot of accounts, but one person can have more. It's possible for one person to have multiple accounts. Multiple accounts, I beg your pardon. But more importantly is we need to do something about education, either digital education or regular education. And why is that important? There are 2 fields for insecurity in Nigeria. A lot of people that don't have education at all, or they don't have the correct education. Other one is economy. Because people that are poor and uneducated, they become feel in the hands of insurgents. They become feel, it's very easy to manipulate their mind and to be used for devil's enterprise. So for me, education is very important. And do we have it up to the level that we need it today? The answer is no. So and that will show. It will show, and in fact, it's showing in the total number of people that registered for BVN. We still have to do more. In total number of people that even carry mobile phone. You hear that we have, a lot of mobile phone penetration. The question is, how many people have multiple lines? On the average, how many lines do Nigerians have? Some have 2, some have 3, some have 4. So when we say we have over 100 million, and you divide that by 3, or you divide the numbers by 2, so you now compare that with our population of over 200 million. You still ask, is the penetration as fantastic as we expect it to be? So education is very important. I also want to encourage, coalition of the civil service, I mean, not civil service now. I want to encourage those who help governments, quote and unquote, NGOs, I beg your pardon. We want to encourage them to also help provide this education, because the truth is government has quite a lot to do, and it appears government cannot solve all the problems, but with the involvement of non-governmental organization, the government can also help our country to push forward in terms of educating people, digital education, and also regular education as we have it in our schools, and so on and so forth. But more importantly, technical education, which of course can take us from the current level of peasant and primary level to perhaps secondary in the coming period.
Well, concerning education, a number of people have also referenced the responsibility that the NOA may have to pay in this. I guess we'll wait for them to respond to that. Well, since you mentioned civil servants, let me speak to, I want you to speak to that as well. In terms of operationalizing eNaira, even among MDAs, how do you see that working?
Well, I think at best, the government may want to use eNaira as a payment platform, because it's still attached to your bank, and that's another challenge. If you are not in Nigeria, you want to use eNaira, what mode of operation will it take? Central Bank is here to explain that, but I believe that they will have some other fantastic things that are not yet in public domain. Maybe, as we see, they have some things to tell Nigerians today. In the coming weeks, in the coming months, as they further develop it, we can now see how some of these challenges that are highlighted will be solved, which of course is the goal. The goal is to make it better, you know. So as we see some of those solutions coming, we can. But for civil servants, one of the things that can be done easily, almost immediately, is for all civil servants, for those that can use mobile app, to download the app and perhaps connect it with their bank, so that Central Bank can directly send money to them. Recall that those that benefit from different government programs, you know, Anchor Borrowers Program, market money, and all of those things, they can also receive the money directly instead of us doing hand to mouth or giving them monies in cash and so on and so forth. All of those will no longer be applicable, because government is saying with eNaira you can have access to it. So ability to download, to install, and to operate is something that we need to do. And I want to encourage Central Bank to use unconventional approach. It's important to advertise on television, some of the major national television that are now giants, you know, within Africa and of course in Nigeria. Also advertise on other advertisement platforms, but also optimize non-conventional approach, which we still come back to television and radio, which could include drama. You know, people seem to connect with drama, translate the drama to different languages, let people know, demonstrate it through voice, demonstrate it through action, not just English, Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, and Pidgin. Nigeria has more languages than those. If possible, 50 languages, if possible, 80 languages, but put it there, let people see it. When the transaction increases, that's when the impact Mr. President and Central Bank Governor is hoping for will become a reality.
Well, we reckon that corporate comms of CBN will be operationalizing some of those highlights there. But just give us a moment. We'll be back and continue on this one in a moment. Welcome back. Well, we're expecting the central bank's representative on the program to shed some light on this. We already see some questions coming through from people that, well, only CBN can answer those, so we're hoping that they make it to the program today. Well, Mr. Alaiji, several questions out here about some of this. How do you see the CBN and the DMBs working together here? Because the DMBs feel quite a little concerned that this is going to impact on a huge component of the operations of the DMBs. And with this one going on, how do you see them working together?
Well, I don't think DMB will have options. We're talking about their regulators, but right now regulators is doing the work of some of the things the regulator is doing. But I also think Central Bank try to be very smart with it, such that you will still need the accounts of the deposit money banks. So quite right now, it's still a bit of concern. And I think Central Bank and the Deposit Money Bank, among other financial institutions, we just need to sort it out, you know, as to what must be done such that the infrastructure that has been built by Deposit Money Bank will not turn out to be a waste. Recall that quite a number of them have similar app at the back end that quite a number of their customers have enlisted to and are using this moment today. The good news or the benefit of using eNaira is that it is cost-effective, cost-efficient compared to what the commercial bank, because purely it is business and they also want to realize money. Some of them have also even partnered with some of the payment system solution provider in Nigeria because the ATM some of us carry may not directly be owned by the DMBs. So with this development, I believe central bank being the big brother and the center of it and bringing quote and unquote this disruption, it is not destruction, but this disruption, they just have to find a way around it because as much as the Deposit Money Bank and other financial institution need central bank, definitely the Central Bank of Nigeria also need the Deposit Money Bank for them to function effectively.
But you know, the name itself, Deposit Money Banks, that means you have, physical cash as it were. There has to be something in the vault. Yes, we have, the money in your app, but of course it's a representation of that physical money. So now with the eNaira, people are, for example, asking, can I go to an ATM with my eNaira wallet, for example, and get, from my e-wallet, get real cash, as it were? Questions around that. But, as it stands now, if people, as expected, if the proper communications go out, people get on board this one, you wonder what will happen in the next 5-10 years with the DMBs particularly. So if people choose to go eNaira most times, so if I want to transfer money to you, 10,000, I transfer it straight to your wallet. I don't have to go through any deposit money bank, as it were. So it's peer-to-peer, as it has been said. And that keeps happening. Nobody needs to go to an ATM to withdraw raw cash, when you can actually transfer, to people's wallets, to companies' wallets, and the rest. Do you really see DMBs being relevant in 10, 15, 20 years? Because these are the issues that are out there. What do you think?
Well, I think this largely will depend on central bank. Such yesterday, when I checked the app out, downloaded the app, it's required for me to link to one of the existing banks in Nigeria, and it also required that I put in my BVN. So to a large extent, the BVN were registered through the deposit money banks. And so except if central bank is bringing some other things, I also believe this partially will rest on the shoulder of the deposit money banks. I strongly believe so. Except if central bank is saying otherwise, because that would mean killing the deposit money bank, and that will spell doom. How many people work in the central bank? How many people work with the deposit money bank? That will really, really be disastrous if they go that route. But I don't think that is what will be applicable. What I think will be applicable is beyond the eNaira, central bank, we still want to work with deposit money banks, but it will erode some of the gains, some of the profits of deposit money bank because of this disruption, this technology that central bank is introducing. And recall that whatever liability is directly on central bank, when you put money on e-wallet and it disappears or if anything happens, it's directly on central bank. So you have even more assured. It's like buying treasury bill or bonds where central bank, to a large extent, federal government of Nigeria will guarantee. So you are much more confident that whatever you are doing on the platform, more importantly, the central bank governor has given us that assurance that regarding the security, we should put our mind at rest. It is safe. You cannot truly believe the central bank governor for that comment, because if we know better, at that level, you'll be sure of what you're doing. So I strongly believe in. But the role of the deposit money bank today is still very minimal. Add them to it. You can transfer money from your account, put it on the e-wallet. You can do peer-to-peer, e-wallet to e-wallet, and so on and so forth. It's going to erode some of the benefits, some of the things we are doing with deposit money banks today. But there are some things that we still have to do. We still have to use payment instruments. All of those are not on eNaira. People will still issue their checks. They still go to the banks to do some of these things. So to a large extent, we'll still need deposit money bank. We'll even still need microfinance bank because they are closer to the people. So, but the eNaira technology that has been introduced, definitely we enrolled some of the gains that Deposit Money Bank have made over the years. And in the next 10 years, we don't know what the policy will look like until maybe central bank explains to us what the projection will be. But, you know, it's also not impossible. The former central bank governor that introduced coin to the economy, people rejected it. And, you know, acceptability is one of the characteristics of money. People rejected it. Today, coins disappeared, even though central bank did not announce that people can no longer accept coins. But acceptability. You know, another thing is the store of value. No, so how fantastic is eNaira going to store value for me? You know, battling with inflation at over 17% or above 16%, you know, on one hand, and devaluation could happen when we continue to defend the naira and it became undefendable, you know, because of some persons who wants to manipulate, some persons who are buying in excess US dollars and keeping for no reason, and one's mind cannot comprehend why people deliberately want to work against their country, not just as terrorists, but financial terrorists who just buy dollars and start somewhere and waiting for naira to collapse and take the money back to the market. I think it is evil. So, but can eNaira solve that problem, which is the real issue? People want to keep their money. They earn 30,000 naira. A couple of years ago, government announced minimum wage to be 30,000 naira. As at that time, what could it buy? Recall that minimum wage in 2011 thereabout was 18,000 naira. The 18,000 naira could buy 2 bags of rice. 30,000 naira that minimum wage increased to could buy 1 bag of rice. So even though the figure has increased, but the value has not increased. And as an economist, and a number of my colleagues will tell you around the country and around the world today, that it is not the figure written on the paper that matters. It is what the money can buy that truly matters to us.
Education is a key component of acceptability, which will in turn impact on the growth or otherwise of this eNaira. But just as, you know, we have people who are asking several questions, which is why we're hoping that the CBN will make it to the show to respond to some of these questions, especially at this initial stage. People need to know what to do, whether or not they should progress or not, because they're asking, for instance, do you think there should be physical location for interaction with customers about these things? Because there are cases, I mean, as we see with the DMBs and MFBs, such that if there's any transfer that occurs and there's a problem with that, we know we can have network or internet challenges here, then they can go for that interaction with the physical ones. But with the CBN, people think, look, now you have this eNaira. The CBN are just far off. So would it be a good idea to have that? Or how do you suggest they go about addressing that concern that people have?
Again, I think central bank will still have to work with commercial bank. They have everywhere in the country, even though quite a number of local governments are not covered. That on one hand, we have NISA, which is a child, quote and unquote, of the central bank, which of course connects to the grassroots with over 100 branches nationwide, even though that is still very small compared to our landmass and also our population. But that would do a bit. I don't see central bank having shops or kiosks and all of those things, but they need to provide education for those who can actually represent them to handle people in terms of commercial banks, apart from commercial bank, microfinance banks, you know, finance houses, those that deregulate, and also NISA, more like National Microfinance Bank, you know, so all of these institutions are those that central bank can readily make use of to help represent, because internet is a challenge. There are times where you send SMS to people and they don't receive it. There are times where you wait to download a document on the internet, but because of poor network bandwidth, over time you just keep waiting and waiting, even though that is not an occurrence that you see every day, once in a while, particularly depending on the area where you live. But you know, the real population of Nigeria are not in the urban center where we have tremendous and abundant internet access. Because when you look at report, 42% of Nigeria live below the poverty line. In 2018, you have about over 80 million Nigerians. To be charitable, 80 million Nigerians live under multidimensional poverty. How much of them have access to to internet, let alone quality internet access? You know, these are some of the challenges that we may have. And where the financial institution they are interacting with, if any, it's just fine that we take people from known to unknown. They say interact with such financial institution. That is why central bank, I don't think alone, and I don't think they have ever said they will alone manage the people or manage this process. So, to a large extent, central bank, we need to work with the deposit money bank, with microfinance bank, finance houses, and all of that within the financial system. And more importantly, they will need to also work with NISA Microfinance Bank so that they can solve some of the challenges that may occur. And I believe that this education will be coming up in the coming period, except if central bank has another plan. But for me, as an outsider, this is what appears to me to be correct. And I hope that central bank will do the needful in the coming period as more and more people get registered. And if you ask me, should people register? I think yes. I think people should register while central bank continue to improve some of the lapses, some of the challenges, some of the concerns that people may have on the app today. Because if anything, it's going to help us more with transparency, anti-money laundering, and quite a number of other things that this will solve as challenges. So people may want to log in, but those who think that if they put their money there, the value of their money will remain the same. Central Bank is saying same naira. That is the naira you have in fiat is the same naira you have as a central bank digital currency. It's the same thing. So whatever happens to the fiat, it's also going to extend. If inflation is eating that, it's going to eat this. If devaluation is eating A, the rest assured that it's also going to eat B. That's what central bank is saying.
Well, perhaps no interest too when you live in your e-wallet for a while. Who knows what happens to that? Because the same naira, any same interest or what? Well, Mr. Alaiji, I want to thank you for coming on this morning. Paul Alaiji is an economist. We're back in a moment. Don't go away.
It is less than 2 weeks to the governorship election in Anambra State, and this meeting of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security is held at the headquarters of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to appraise the security situation in the state. Attending the meeting are the National Security Advisor, the INEC Chairman, heads of security agencies, including the Anambra State Commissioner of Police. Insecurity in Anambra State has been a major concern for the Independent National Electoral Commission, and that concern still exists less than 2 weeks to the election.
INEC is determined to proceed with the Anambra State governorship election as scheduled. The safety and protection of voters, our personnel, accredited observers, the media and materials are cardinal considerations in any election. We have been assured by the security agencies of a secure environment for the election. I'm sure the CP Anambra State in his briefing will provide more details regarding preparations on the ground.
However, the National Security Advisor gives security assurances while warning those behind violence in the state to have a rethink.
I don't think it will be helpful to anyone to go out and ignite something that might cause pain for the people of Anambra State. For the security agencies, they've been warned. Any rogue element that decides to behave in a manner that will tar our collective institutions in a very dark color will be brought to justice in accordance with the rules of those institutions.
Over 2.5 million registered voters are expected to participate in the Anambra State governorship election, but many believe that the current security situation in the state, if left unchecked, can cause voter apathy.
Hopefully, we are not done with eNaira. We still hope to come back to it as soon as we have the CBN. But for now, let us have a conversation with Alfred Ononugbo, who is a forensic security expert, concerning the Southeast security that's been in the news for a while. Thanks for joining us this morning, Mr. Ononugbo. A quick one, what's your take on that conversation that you just saw, that meeting that held yesterday?
Very much good morning to you, and thank you for having me on this morning. Just like everyone else, and
you may have muted yourself, Mr. Ononugbo. You want to try again? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, we share this concern, and I think it's mutual. Considering the developments over the period in Anambra State, people are concerned about the safety of the process and also the people that are addressing the issues should also weigh the situation from a point that is going to help us. First of all, insecurity is not exclusive to just elections. There's a general fear. People feel that they are open to threats and they are unprotected. And it didn't just start with the election. It's something that has built up over a period of time, not only in the East, but of course, it's a global concern. So Nigeria is not an exception. Now, for the Anambra situation, the government have reasons to be concerned. And also the politicians have reasons also to be afraid, given that there's been this conflict that's been ongoing for a while now, and we've not been able to put our finger and bring an end to those threats. They have reasons to show this level of concern. And I want to believe that beyond the election, government should put in place, systems to help educate the people. I think education is the secret, enlightening the people, helping them to realize that security is not the exclusive responsibility of the government. The people themselves should be able to appreciate the fact that they have secure space to live their lives and do their businesses. So the Anambra State situation gives us serious concerns because the security agencies have not been able to put to rest the factors that are driving these insecurities. And I'm concerned.
When you say factors that are driving the insecurity, one wonders if there are factors that the security agencies are not aware of. What are some of these factors, if you can shed some light?
Well, of course, there's a general apathy with the political class in the East. And it might affect the entire nation, but I think there is a big question that has not been able to find answers based on the performances of the politicians. One is the level of poverty and unemployment in that region. Now, you will understand that when people are meaningfully engaged, you minimize the threats that they are exposed to, because a lot of the people that become easy hands for crime could have or would have found, sustainable means of livelihood. So that's a very underlying factor. Now, let me make it clear. Crime has no tribe. It's not an ethnic thing. And it has no political alliance. A criminal is a criminal. The only thing is that they find a vehicle that can help them perpetrate their crime or engage in their activities. So the political class have not been really accountable to the people, and they have no explanation for the level of unemployment and poverty that have translated to all manner of insinuations and political vehicles or whatever other vehicles that people have entered in pursuing self-recognition, economic emancipation, and all these other things. Those are things that the critical elements driving the insecurity, and that might affect Anambra State.
Well, Mr. Onugo, the question that comes to my mind from all of these things that you just said now is, are you saying essentially that all of the peace accords, all of the security summits, all of the Saudi's governors' meetings has not been able to hatch a solution?
Oh, certainly. You will understand, and I'm respectfully going to say this. A lot of the politicians in office today were probably not elected on public or popular mandates. There is a role the political parties play. They bring people that probably appeals to some interests and then puts them forward. And of course, they have their machineries to provide and produce such people as leaders. For people that recognize leadership driven by merit and integrity, and I think that is general, it's a global thing. Once you begin to manipulate and shortchange the mandate of the people, you create an atmosphere of anarchy. It might not, get to the peak, but it progressively gets to where it becomes a general issue. The process, the democratic process that are often breached in selection and election of leadership seems to be one factor, one out of many. And also that also might inform why political office holders fail to give, acceptable accountability of themselves. Their performances leaves many people with questions. That's one. Two, the situation where people are political contractors, which means they become vehicles that determine who becomes party candidates and officials of government because they have the control of the resources and also influence on the structures of the system because they fund them is another challenge. So these are little things that are behind the build-up. So even if a credible candidate emerges, those who benefit from this other system that is bereft of integrity will definitely fight back because they don't want to lose out. They want to remain relevant. They want to also feed from the system. So I think until we realize that popular mandate should be the procedure and then should be the process that produces leadership, we might have more conflicts, brewing in the system.
How significantly do these issues that you have raised feed into the fears being created by the threats of sit at home and all those things by pockets of groups all over the Southeast?
Well, you will see that there are several individuals who are working and campaigning to be elected to those offices. Now, the question will be, did these people come through an uncompromised process? That's one. Two, how will a man that spends so much to get nominated and spends fortune to get elected have the resources, have the time, and be devoid of the pressure to develop infrastructures, economic, infrastructures, social platforms that can accommodate the enlightened and educated youths. Anambra is known for, like I would say anytime, any day, it's the leading industrial state in Nigeria. The things coming out of Anambra is unimaginable. And yet, a good percentage of these people are doing so on self-help. So they are seen as examples. So people tend to believe more in such people than a political office holder who is just a public administrator of resources. So the youths are caged, they are trapped. They don't see oiled policies from the government that guarantees them a future. Secondly, you also realize that from history, it's like whenever a new government comes, they jettison the programs that were set up by the previous administration and start new ones. And many times these are just self-advertising, self-publicity projects. So when that government leaves, the next administration will initiate something totally new. So the people don't get to benefit from government investment in development. So it's affecting the youth because they are the ones who can't get jobs, they can't meet their own needs, they depend on their parents or their family members to survive. And when you become a liability socially in a culture where achievements are celebrated, success is like a medal, a gold medal, it becomes worrisome.
Mm. It's quite interesting. I mean, linking insecurity to the electoral process, and when you talk about the mandate of the people, popular mandate and the rest. And, it's quite interesting because speaking specifically about Anambra now, Anambra is a peculiar state because that's a state where you have a party that is outside the big two, as they call it, the APC and the PDP, governing a state. So, I mean, to that extent, people will tell you that, well, clearly, it would seem the party has the mandate of the people for it to, wield such influence in the midst of the APC and the PDP and to become governor, not once, twice. So that's a peculiar state. But then this is also quite interesting because from what you say, it will then mean that for us to solve the insecurity which we see, perhaps not just in Anambra, across the country, we need to go back to the selection process. I mean, beyond the kinetic approach, we actually need to think back, and I'm talking within political parties, how, leaders are elected, how they come up, people's participation in, that electoral process. I mean, take a look at voter turnout. INEC says between 30 and 35% we had in 2019. So not enough people even come out to select their leader. So that there's a question around, I mean, just 35% electing a leader that will govern the whole 100%. But for you as a security expert, I wonder when you're consulted, because I know from time to time you have to consult maybe for state executives or people in government. Do you put these forward and say, well, let's set aside the kinetic. Let's talk about how leaders emerge in the first place. Are people happy with government? Are these issues that you bring up?
Yes, when I have the opportunity, which is rare, because I think sometimes it's about the personality and the interest of the candidates or the winners of the elections or the politicians. If they want honest consultancy services, I'm sure beyond myself, there are many Nigerians who are as concerned as I am. I'm also sure that some of them watch your programs that discusses extensive issues and subjects on securities across the board. So it's something that we will also be glad to help the government address. There's need for us to sincerely step back. We seem to have taken democracy from the surface. The process that generates the anticipated results are often not in consideration. So it's something that I've had opportunity to share my views with some of my friends who are politicians, and it's not easily taken because these guys are also under enormous pressures from unseen political benefactors. There are people who have survived in the system. They have no industries, they have no investments anywhere in this country, but they are billionaires. And all they do with those funds are basically to control political establishments and ensure that they remain relevant in the sharing system. You know, they are not bothered if 1 million youths are unemployed. They are bothered about the affluence they enjoy. They have unfiltered access to corridors of power, and they can, you know, promise heaven and earth. And of course, when they speak, you will fall for them because by interaction, they understand the problems, but by motive, they are far from a good intention to help the entire country. It's a serious concern. Not many of them are open to, even when they start opening up and listening, I think along the line, the fear of the next election becomes their concern. And gradually, there's a drift. They work more to be re-elected. They work harder to remain politically relevant. And they forget that when they are done with political assignments, they become part of the same society that has been neglected and remained undeveloped.
So it will seem the solution to our insecurity is largely political, I mean, from your submissions. But you've talked about elections and you know, politicians, how they look forward to elections. So the Anambra election is coming next week. And, you know, this is going to be a big test. Not just for INEC, really. Well, INEC has said this will be embarrassingly transparent, but also for the security agencies, for the people of the state, and by extension, the people of the Southeast, and even Nigeria. The president has said, I mean, just right after that meeting with heads of security agencies that, you know, that election must hold, even if it means that security agencies will overwhelm that state. And earlier on on the program, we talked about a show of force as against show of presence, and that was referenced by Chamberlain. I'm just wondering how you expect this to be approached in terms of, if it means overwhelming the state, how should that overwhelming, how should it be prosecuted?
Thank you very much for this question. First of all, I'm glad I have the opportunity to respond to this. I think our security agencies must realize that they belong to the people. They are part of the society. And we should use our security agencies to create some level of education and enlightenment. There must be a heart and mind kind of approach to security operations. We don't just operate on a platform of enforcement. No. The security system should be part of the education. They should interact with the society. Their presence should be felt in schools. Security officials or agencies should be part of the education system in Nigeria. I don't see what is wrong if we assign policemen to go to primary schools, secondary schools, as teachers, universities as lecturers, basically bringing home the essence of the criminal justice administration system. Now, when people see you only when you manage threats and dangers, they form a mindset. They don't see you as an essential part of their social life. They don't see you as part of those who are contributing to their understanding of life and the society. So I think the militarization of security agencies should be de-emphasized. Our security agencies must be seen as friends, like there's a popular advert, the police is your friend. That should be the actual culture. They should be interactive. They should be involved in the society. They shouldn't just have a place where you bring problems, troublemakers, and even when you go there, sometimes your crises are compounded. Like a leader once said, he said, once you have issues among yourselves and you go to a police station, you will never resolve it. Why? Because the system is not designed or is not operating to solve those problems, build interaction, create harmony, and get people on the side of the law. The police, the army, the DSS, civil defense, and other agencies should be involved in developing social structures for the society. They shouldn't just wear uniforms and appear or be used because that's the wrong side of the agencies that they've not been able to address. Most often, people who breach the law because they have the resources use the agencies to enforce illegitimacies, illegalities. So this has created a stigma and then built a wall between the people and the security agencies. So we must find a way to harmonize our operational activities and direct it to educate and inform the people. The people should be able to trust a yes from a police officer or a security agent more than they trust just any politician or anybody, including the politicians. Nobody also should be allowed to operate outside the provisions of the law. Now, I'll give you an instance where, let me even use traffic laws, where politicians use siren and, run against traffic lights in the full glare of the public with police escorts or military escorts or any other form of security escort is a bad sign, it's a bad culture. We must eliminate these things. If we don't do that, people will not have that confidence that when a policeman or a soldier or any official of the law is standing, that they are safe. So there are lots of moral issues. There are also professional and technical issues involved. The system should develop values. They should put the interests of the people above the expectations of a very few. So those are some of the things that I expect that the law enforcement agencies should begin to look at. How can they develop relationship and build trust? It's a project. It has to come from their research institutes. It has to come from sociologists. It has to come from the academia. We must help the security agencies to build a social bridge with our society. Now, where the security agencies are, perceived as threats, people feel insecure. They don't feel the warmth. They don't feel like we own this system. It's there for us. Then we are far from achieving security. Because when threats come from both sides, sometimes you don't even know who to hold responsible. There are things that happen and it escalates. You'll be wondering, are the agencies failing on their assignment, or is it that the people do not even understand what the law says about what they're doing? So there's this imbalance, and we must bridge that gap.
Well, you talked about education for security education, so to speak. It will interest you to find out that in Nigeria today we teach security education as a subject, GS1, GS2, GS3. I don't know if it extends to SS. A number of things are taught, including relating with security agents in school, in preventing crimes and all of that. But when you talked about the policies that need to be put in place and all of that, ultimately it has to come from the same political class that you say people have issues with, people don't have so much confidence in. The election in Anambra is just about 2 weeks away. What then are the options before the people? What do you suggest that the people should do now? Candidates have been put out there. PVCs are yet to be circulated by INEC. A day is going to be given, for that soon. What, in your opinion, should the people be targeting now? There's a dilemma of security. There's a dilemma of an election that has to hold. What are the options?
Well, I like to say that the concerns are not just about this election. We should begin to see the challenges beyond this present election. The election has to hold, and because it must hold, we expect that the security agencies will put in their best. They are human beings, and I'm sure they don't want to come out of that election with failed results. So I'm optimistic that they would use the resources within their means in terms of human and material resources to ensure that the election comes out very good. That does not eliminate the fact that there are opinions. There are going to be certain challenges in dealing with the fear already created by the issues of killings and attack on policemen, because these are also going to have their play out during the election. Those are the concerns. A situation where policemen have been hunted down, police stations have been attacked, INEC offices attacked, and all that. And I'm sure these are part of the reasons why you could see all these activities around security going on. On a normal day, I don't think that would have been the case. So I also would like to encourage the traditional rulers, the town union presidents, families, to advise their wards. They are part of the system. If the traditional rulers call their people together to let them know that, look, we must do the right thing, I'm sure that people are going to be a bit more organized. And I don't know how much the government often involves the traditional rulers and other structures of community governments in the programs that they run. But this is where such signage or relationship plays a role. They should be able to use this establishment, including the churches. In the Southeast, particularly in Anambra, the Roman Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, and Pentecostal churches are quite influential, very, very influential. And they should be consulted. They should be encouraged to use their platforms for voter education, to enlighten the people, also to encourage the people to be law-abiding. I don't see why these people should not be mobilized by INEC. INEC should also create awareness. Probably after this election, they shouldn't wait. They should create units in INEC that goes to some of these religious centers, mosques, churches, and other worship centers to educate the people. There should be, like I said, there should be some interaction. There should be some kind of communication lines established between these agencies and the people. So I see that to be very crucial. And I know people respect religious leaders in the East. A lot of them still have integrity. So the politicians are the problem because people don't trust them. And when you associate, even the religious people are apprehensive of relating with politicians because they are afraid to be branded as endorsing a politician against the other. But there should be a neutral ground. There should be an open ground for them to address issues. Nothing is wrong if the state government uses the state platform, the broadcasting, to bring the bishop of Oka or the bishop of one of the religious organizations to join the governor in a state broadcast or a collection of them. Whatever can be done to prepare the mind of the people to go out there to elect credible leaders will be welcomed.
Well, the only thing we can hope now is there will be strong enough persuasion for the people to do the needful, as opposed to the strong threats that they have to contend with. But in the meantime, Alfred Ononugbo, forensic security expert, thank you very much for your time and thoughts this morning.
It's always my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Time for our messages then?
Well, yes, as we can see, the CBN was not able to make it on the program today. It was they were scheduled to be on the program today, but it turns out that that didn't happen. So, well, because there are several questions that people are asking. Razak, for instance, you see the comments coming through from Razak Okpelu-Yeru, who is about the same eNaira. He says, I've been trying to register on the eNaira speed wallet since yesterday.
How ironic.
Still, I've not been able to do that successfully. I keep getting the error message, email can't be blank, and there was no part I didn't fill in the form. There's a lot for the CBN to work on in order to make a good start of the process.
That's what I mean. I hope that has been fixed, because if it's meant to be speed wallet.
Now it's slow wallet, according to Razak.
So Ahmed says eNaira is a good concept, but will cause digital exclusion and true value aside, it should be explained to Nigerian. And it goes on to reference the conversation we had earlier at the beginning. EFCC, ICPC are all dividend of police, but well paid and managed. That's why they are doing well, he says.
Call that a buffet of words. Famous Timilehin says, we're only told
Please,
about
another word. Please, don't use that buffet anyhow, please. Some folks will be angry with me.
We're only told about the advantages, but no information about the disadvantages. What will be the effect of inflation and devaluation? How do we compare eNaira with other currency? Well, these questions are for the CBN.
Yeah, because naira is not a convertible currency.
Well, you know, to be fair, actually, on that website, eNaira's website, there are a lot of frequently asked questions that the CBN tried to answer. Well, so the question is, I mean, just how many people have gone there to seek answers to some of these questions? There are a lot of answers, clearly, that are not there, but they provide answers to some questions.
The question you want to ask is how many people even know there is an eNaira website?
Well, I know.
Well, you do. eNaira.gov.ng.
You know.
Well, I just, Bluetooth.
So if you know, you know, right? Well, I hope that 9-page FAQ, they will just go through that and see if it answers any of those questions. But you know how people are, they just want that interaction.
Yeah.
Further explanation about some of those questions. Well, this next one comes through from Paul. Paul says, until we have a government that has the political will and boldness to place total embargo on importation of consumable goods, naira as a currency may not appreciate. Only industrial goods and machineries should be allowed into Nigeria with strict monitoring, compliance, and punishment to deter defaulters. Though the policy may be tough at the initial stage, but in the long run, it will bring our nation back to the years of industrialization and reduce drastically our levels of unemployment. But I hope Nigerians, as a people, are ready for this economic surgery.
Another buffet of words.
Maybe you might tell us about SAP too.
Oh, yeah.
Typology of economic surgery. Tighten your belts, they say, those days.
Honestly, it's interesting times, clearly. And you see this one from Festus Akimboyewa, still on eNaira, saying, I absolutely support eNaira as it can transform our economy and reduce the threat of unregulated cryptocurrencies. Also, while only the banks currently hold digital currencies through our bank cards and online payments, eNaira will give all Nigerians who have internet-enabled devices, forget there's USSD as well, to hold accounts directly at CBN. I have downloaded the apps and can't wait to use them.
But when they say to hold accounts, it's a wallet.
Which is like an account.
But the account, depending on that type of account, there's some interest accrued to you.
Oh, I mean, no interest for your wallet in your pocket, is there?
So you see,
it's
just a wallet.
On the website, it says eNaira serves both as a medium of exchange and a store of value. So,
wait a minute. If it's a store of value, okay, never know.
Don't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah, good idea there.
Professor Enakena says eNaira will help to reshape the country's financial landscape and push legacy banks to adapt the services they offer. This will help the regulator limit black market trading in the naira, bolster inbound remittances, and reduce so-called leakages from state-funded social programs.
Well, Joshua says, look, the question every ordinary Nigerian will want to ask the CBN is, will digital currency bring an end to the current inflation rate that's skyrocketing on a daily basis? Will it stabilize the naira and bring it up par with the interdominating USD? Will it solve the problem of unemployment? We need fiscal policies that will boost
Joshua
agriculture.
said question, but those are questions.
That's why I paused it a bit and let everyone with some thoughts in my head, which I'm like, well, let me just read his mail.
Maybe it's just one question with A, B, C.
And it says, will this solve the problem? Okay, well, I've read that. We need fiscal policies that will boost agriculture, boost industrialization through FDI and SME drive. The CBN should focus on what will better the economy than concentrating on issues that add little or no value to the economy.
More questions. And this one's from Olorunloba Deni saying, I was just wondering, Is the eNaira going to stimulate production within the country? He says, I believe the answer is no. But it's a goal of the eNaira really to stimulate. I think some of the goals are quite clear, and I don't think stimulating production is one of them. But going back to that statement, it says, your guests in the studio this morning, just like many others, have said it all. The only way out for us from this economic imbroglio and quagmire is by becoming a producing nation. Whatever economic innovation we introduce will fail except it is meant to enhance massive production.
Henry says, many are of the opinion that digitizing our legal tender has no real value on the purchasing power or real value. An action akin to gold plating a filthy sepulchre. We'll continue to re-echo this concern even as we urge the government to promote local manufacturing, including local refining of crude and other energy sources. That's the way to save the naira, not this whitewashing alternative. Oh dear.
Well. Then look at this one coming about. They was going to talk about Southeast security, but not to worry, Mr. Nicholas. We get your messages. Thank you very much indeed, and everyone else for sending your messages. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
And I'm Ayo Makinde, asking you to have a wonderful